Hello, welcome to EBITDA, the show for anything tech and business. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest players in the sector, and that is OpenAI. So I'm sure you've heard them in the news a lot lately, and I just wanted to go over the business structure because I think it's important that we understand these companies. So OpenAI started in 2015 as a nonprofit. According to their website, their goal was to benefit humanity as a whole. But recently, they've changed their business structure. It's a little complicated, but the point is that they are partially nonprofit, partially for profit. So they're trying to make money and they're spending a lot of money, so they kind of need to. They have a $22 billion deal with CoreWeave, a $300 billion deal with Oracle, and an undisclosed Broadcom deal. So all this combined, according to the CEO Sam Altman, is over 1.4 trillion over the next 8 years. So that's a lot of money. One thing I've noticed is that they don't seem to be making money. In the same post that Sam Altman said they are going to spend 1.4 trillion over the next 8 years, he said they made 20 billion in annual revenue this year, and that's an estimate. So the CEO's own estimate is not even close to covering how much they're planning to spend. Now he said hopefully that will grow to hundreds of billions by 2030, but there's not exactly evidence to back that up really. That's just kind of a claim. So if the current revenue is 20 billion a year, the spending is 1.4 trillion over the next 8 years, they better have something cooking up to pay for that. And it doesn't seem like they do. Their most recent release was Sora, which is a short form video content website, basically, sort of like TikTok, something like that, but it's AI generated content. And first of all, it doesn't make money. There's no ads or anything on it. According to Fobaloo of Forbes, it costs $15 million a day to run, which is a crazy upfront cost. Now, it's not profitable now. It's possible. A lot of tech startups aren't profitable to start where they establish a user base and they add ads later. But even if they do add ads, it doesn't make that much sense as a business. They're competing with places like YouTube Shorts, TikTok, companies like that. And those companies had a very smart business model that's different to traditional media where, normally you have to pay millions of dollars to make a movie or a TV show. YouTube sort of pioneered this model of creator made content. You just host the website and then hundreds, thousands of people make free content that you can run ads on. Like this podcast, this is uploaded to YouTube. They could run ads on this. They don't have to pay me to make this. So OpenAI has taken that model and then added a $15 million a day upfront cost. So the business model doesn't really make sense. And it just kind of feels like they're floundering a little bit, just like putting out new products that don't seem to help their business. And I think OpenAI kind of knows this. They know that their business doesn't really make sense. They're not making money. They're spending billions and billions and billions more than they can. And it seems like they're kind of angling to become too big to fail. That seems to be how they're going to get out of this. What I mean by too big to fail is that they're so important to the economy right now with how big AI is that they can basically rely on the government bailing them out if they can't make their payments. The CFO of the company had an interview with the Wall Street Journal where she said something kind of concerning. I'll just go ahead and play the clip.
We're absolutely using chips that are like A100 equivalents that have been around like maybe 6-7 years at this point in time. If that's the case, financing chips gets a lot easier. If the timeline on the chip stays short, that gets harder. And so this is where we're looking for an ecosystem of banks, private equity, maybe even governmental, the ways governments can come to bear.
Meaning like a federal subsidy or something?
Meaning like just first of all, the backstop, the guarantee that allows the financing to happen.
So, a backstop. Now, she did go back and later took back this claim. She said the backstop was a misspeak. She didn't mean that. And Sam Altman also said we aren't expecting a backstop. And to me, that sounds like a PR move, but maybe they're telling the truth, right? Maybe they don't really want a federal backstop. But either way, that clip is pretty hard to defend. It seems like the company is very much aware how important they are to the government because of how big AI is, and they know that the government will help them out if they need to. And so I just think that's, it's not a good sign for your business when you're planning on having the government help you out if you can't figure it out. A good profitable business shouldn't need the government to help them. You should just make money. And OpenAI doesn't make money. And I just think that it's weird that one of the most prevalent companies right now is not profitable. The business model doesn't make sense. They don't make money. Sora doesn't make money. It loses money. They just keep losing money. And yet they're spending money that they don't have. They're planning all these $1 trillion deals that they can't afford. And look, I mean, when you're spending that much, the hope is that you grow. And, all these deals are not just burning money, right? The point is that they're supposed to be investments, and maybe they can recoup those losses. But it doesn't seem like they're doing anything to recoup those losses. Yeah, they're investing all this stuff in AI, but the things they're making are Sora, which don't make money. The question is, why are they spending this money? What are they going to get from it? A lot of people think that the company's going to grow, and maybe it will. I don't know. I can't predict the future. But all the things that point in the direction of OpenAI succeeding are based around a lot of speculation, hype, mainly, hope. And I just think if you look at the hard facts of their business, that doesn't make sense. And so I'm just really skeptical about all this excitement around the company and all the money being put into it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you found it insightful. I hope you can start to think a little more about how these companies work instead of just, going along with the news. And remember, it's always up and to the right. Goodbye.